Connecting to the words of the Gemara can be difficult. This series, Bringing Gemara to Life, will allow us to experience the Gemara from a new perspective, using real people and live performances. Hope you enjoy!
A Freilich Purim. We, over the past 7 weeks, have brought many interesting Gemaras to life. And today, we're going to explore both a very interesting and a very practical Gemara. The Gemara Masechet Megillah, which talks all about the story of Purim and many of the mitzvos of Purim. And we are going to focus on these 4 mitzvos of Purim, being reading the Megillah, giving Shalach Manos, giving gifts to one another, Matanos Levyonim, giving gifts to the poor, and the Mishnah, the Purim Suda that we have. We'll start with the Mishnah on 6b, Vav Amud Beis. And the Mishnah over there talks about when do we observe Purim, when do we celebrate in a leap year, when there's 2 Adars. Should we celebrate in the first Adar, Adar Rishon, or in the second Adar, Adar Sheni? And the Mishnah says, Karas Megillah ba'Adar Rishon. If a person read the Megillah in the first Adar, V'nis Abra Hashana, and then it becomes, in Ubar Yar, it becomes a leap year. We add a second Adar onto the calendar. Karan Osa ba'Adar Sheni. We go ahead and we read the Megillah again in Adar Sheni. So it tells us really that the main time to celebrate Purim is not the first Adar, but it's in the second Adar. And why this is a good question. We'll discuss it when we get to the Gemara. But the Mishnah goes on and it tells us that Ein Bein Adar Harishon La Adar Hasheni. The only difference between the first Adar and the second is Ela Kriyas Megillah Umatanos Levyonim. That in the second Adar, that's when we have the obligation to read the Megillah and give gifts to the poor. But in the first Adar, if we had the Mishnah, if we had our Purim Suda, and if we gave Mishalach Manos, if we gave gifts to our friends, then we'd be Yotze, we would fulfill our obligation. And all this is speaking specifically during the times of Chazal, during the times of the Gemara, when they didn't know exactly if there was going to be 1 Adar or 2 Adars, if it was going to be a leap year or not, because they would go to the Basin, and the Basin would decide whether or not to add a second Adar. But we have a fixed calendar, and we know when there's going to be 2 Adars and when there's going to be 1. And so this is less relevant to us, Bizman Hazeh. So which month should we read the Megillah? That's what the Gemara wants to answer. And the discussion, like many of the discussions that we've seen, is based around the understanding of a pasuk.
Lekayem aleihem liososimes Yom Arba Asar Chodesh Adar Ves Yom Chamisha Asar Bo V'chol Shana V'Shana.
V'chol Shana V'Shana, like every year. That tells me that it has to be done in Adar Rishon. That's when we read the Megillah, the first Adar.
No, it means that we read it in Adar Sheni, the second Adar.
No. V'chol Shana V'Shana. Every year we read the Megillah in the month after Shvat. So even when there are 2 Adars, we read the Megillah in the month after Shvat. V'chol Shana V'Shana.
No, B'chol Shana V'Shana is that every single year we put Geula next to Geula. We have the Geula, the redemption of Purim, that they were freed, they were saved, and we have the Geula of Pesach, that they were freed, they were saved, and so therefore it should be in Adar Sheni, right before Nisan, right before Pesach.
So not so fast. I guess you want to ignore the principle of Ein Ma'avir Al HaMitzvos, that we don't bypass mitzvos. You're telling me we should have an opportunity to do something in Adar Rishon and skip it and go to Adar Sheni? That violates that principle. I don't want to wait to do a mitzvah. I want to do it Adar Rishon. B'chol Shana V'Shana.
You're right. That would be a huge problem if I was skipping a mitzvah. But Adar Rishon is not the time of the mitzvah, so I'm not passing over anything. Well, and the Gemara concludes that the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is correct, that we read the Megillah in the second Adar, in Adar Sheni. And one support that the Gemara gives to this is Mismach Geula LeGeula Adif, that it's more preferable for us to put the 2 Geulas next to each other. The Geula, the redemption of Purim, and the Geula, the redemption of Pesach. And the other reason that the Gemara gives is L'Chaim Es Igeres HaPurim Hazos Hashenis, that the pasuk in Megillas Esther says to confirm this written letter of Purim, the Shenis, the second one. And the word Hashenis, the second, teaches us that there are times when the Megillah is read twice. And what are those times that the Megillah is read twice? In a year where it becomes Adar, and they read the Megillah, and then they add an Adar Sheni. So in that year, it should be read twice, because the main time to read, the main time to celebrate Purim, is the second Adar, Adar Sheni.
So the Gemara in Megillah Daf Zayin Amud Aleph begins discussing some of the details of the mitzvos of Purim, namely Mishloach Manos, Matanos Le'Avyonin, and the Seudah, known as Mishtah. First, the Gemara learns about Mishloach Manos and tells us the following principle. The rule is, Tani Rav Yosef, Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reyehu, Shtei Manos L'Ish Echad. 2 portions to 1 person. There we go. There's also the mitzvah of Matanos Le'Avyonim. That is in plural, Matanos Le'Avyonim. And that tells me I got to give to multiple people. To you, and to you. As the Gemara calls it, Shtei Matanos L'Shnei Avyonim. The Gemara then tells us a few halachos about the Seudah and Mishloach Manos. Specifically, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi and Rabbi Oshia, who served in the Beis Din. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi had a very, very interesting practice, which we're going to illustrate right now.
A Freilichen Purim, here's a leg of a calf and a jug of wine.
Freilichen Purim.
In this situation, the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi fulfilled 2 mitzvos, both Mishloach Manos and Matanos Le'Avyonim. This is because this is a substantial, very expensive gift, more expensive than eggs even nowadays. And Rav Oshia was poor, so it was a gift to the poor as well. So it was 2 birds with 1 stone. Good job, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. The Gemara also speaks about Rabbi Chanina bar Avin and Abai bar Avin. They had a very special, unique practice on Purim. Let's see what they did.
Let's exchange.
That's a great idea.
Good job, gentlemen. By exchanging seudos, you also fulfilled the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos at the same time. And you shared with your brother, so good job.
The most interesting and probably most well-known story from the Gemara is a statement of Rabbah. Amar Rabbah Mechayev Inish Lebesume Bepuria. A person has a mitzvah to become intoxicated on Purim. Ad lo yada bein Ar Haman levarich Mordechai. Until they don't know the difference between the cursed Haman and the blessed Mordechai. Rabbah and Rabbi Zera were having a Purim Suda together. Yibasum, they became intoxicated. And Kam Rabbah shachte le Rabbi Zera. Rabbah got up and he shechted Rabbi Zera.
Oh no, what did I do? I killed Rabbi Zera. This is a Purim Suda. I didn't mean to do that. Hashem, please save Rabbi Zera. Please have mercy on him.
And then the Gemara says a year later, Rabbah tried to invite Rabbi Zera to another Purim Suda.
Rabbi Zera, please join me for our Purim Suda this year.
No way. Miracles don't happen every hour. I can't risk it.
Good choice.
Okay.
Now we're going to jump to 17a, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, and the Mishnah over there. And the Mishnah tells us, Hakarias Megillah Lemafreya, someone who reads the Megillah out of order, Lo Yatza, does not fulfill their obligation.
Bishna shalosh l'malcho asa mishtel chol sarav va'avodav vayihi b'mei achashver vayihi b'mei achashverosh hu achashverosh hamalech mehodu vad kush sheva v'esrim reya medina bayamim haim kisheves hamelech achashverosh al kisei malchusho asher b'shushan avira bishna shalosh l'malcho asa mishtel chol sarav
The Mishnah also
va'avodav.
tells us, Kara al peh, Kara targum b'chol lashon. If a person reads it from memory, if a person reads it in any language, lo yatza, does not fulfill the obligation.
Gam vashti amalka asa mishtei nashim. Gam vashti amalka asa mishtei nashim. Beis hamachos asher hamelech achashverosh. En aquelas dias quanto el reaswaro. Bishnas shalosh l'malcho asa mishtei l'chol sarav va'avadav chel paras imadai.
But adds the Mishnah of Al Karan Osa Leloazos Balaz, if you read it in a foreign language to people who speak that language, v'aloe sheshama ashuris, or people who speak not Hebrew, and they hear the Megillah read in Hebrew. In both those cases, yatsa, a person fulfills their obligation.
There was a Jewish man in Shushan, the capital, whose name was Mordechai, son of Yair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, the Benjaminite.
And the Gemara goes ahead and it helps us understand what exactly the Mishnah is talking about, and it asks, Manahani Mili, from where do we know this?
Well, it says in Megillah Esther, Kichsavam v'chizmanam, like it's written and like the times. That's when Purim should be observed. Kichsavam v'chizmanam. What does that tell me? Well, just like Kizmanam, just like the times must be in the right time. If you're supposed to observe Purim on the 14th, it must be in the 14th. 15th has to be the 15th. That has to be the right order. So to Chichsavam, same way it's written. Therefore, you have to have it read in the correct order.
Is that really what this pasuk is talking about? That's not what this pasuk is talking about. It says, Lios osim es shnei hayamim ha'ela, to do these 2 days. It's talking about the observance of the mitzvahs. I think it's the next pasuk actually that's talking about how you have to read the Megillah in order. V'hayamim ha'ela nizkarim v'nasim. That these days are remembered and they are done. Just like the doing has to be in the correct order. Someone who observes Purim on the 14th has to be on the 14th, on the 15th, it has to be on the 15th. So too the Zechira, the remembrance, the reading of the Megillah has to be in the correct order. The miracles have to be read in the order that they happen. It can't be out of order.
I'll buy that.
The Gemara goes ahead and it cites the Gemara in Brachos, the machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim, the exact machlokes that we saw when we learned about Kriya Shema. See, the Torah says Vahayu. Vahayu means Vahaviyas on you. That the way the Torah is written, that is the way we read it. The mitzvah of Kriya Shema, to read the Shema, is Vahaviyas on the way it is. It's in Lashon HaKodesh. It's not in English. It's not in French. Not Spanish. It's in Lashon HaKodesh, and that's the way you have to say Kriya Shema.
Point ready. Oh, my friend. What about this pasuk? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Shema. It says Shema. Hear it. In any lashon, however you hear it, you should hear it. I read the word Shema to tell me that you can say Kriya Shema in any language. Shema means b'chol lashon she'ata shomea.
Of course, Shema. That you have to hear in your ears that which comes out of your mouth. You have to say it audibly. It has to be written, it has to be read in Lashon HaKodesh, in Hebrew, and it has to be said audibly when you're doing the mitzvah. That's Shema.
I'm sorry. I don't agree with that approach entirely. Okay? You do not have to listen to the words that you're saying. I don't believe it has to be Mashmiya La'aznecha. I don't use that. I don't use the word Shema to teach me that. I use the word Shema to teach me in any language. And I don't need anything to teach me that I have to hear it, because I don't have to hear it.
So what do you say about the word Vahayu?
Okay. Vahayu is something entirely different. Vahayu teaches me I have to do the entire Shema in a certain seder, in a certain order. I have to do the first paragraph and the second paragraph. The psukim have to be in order. Vahayu, they should be this way. That's what Vahayu, this should be that, nothing else, okay?
No, that's Ha-Devarim. It could have said Vahayu Devarim. Ha-Devarim means that it has to be in order.
I'm not impressed with your hey of Ha-Devarim.
I got you.
Ha-Devarim is a normal word. You can't derive anything extra from Ha-Devarim. You don't derive anything from there. You derive it from Hayu, not Ha-Devarim. I'm sorry.
I disagree.
Well, I disagree.
The exact topics that we are discussing right here about Megillah Esther. What language is it read in? What order does it have to be read in? And the Gemara cites that machlokes, saying that we don't need to learn it from Megillah Esther. We don't need the psukim that we just analyzed to tell us which order it has to be read in. We already have from Kriya Shema. We know from over there. But then the Gemara says that that is apples and oranges. We don't accept that argument over here because Kriya Shema is different. Kriya Shema is a mitzvah daraisa. It is a Torah level mitzvah. And typically we're more strict when it comes to a Torah level mitzvah. But Kriyas Megillah is a rabbinic level mitzvah. It's on a lower level. And so therefore we do need a specific limud. We need to learn specifically from the psukim in the Megillah to know that it has to be read in a certain order. And the Gemara also teaches us that Hishmit ba Hakari Pasuk Echad, that if a person skips a pasuk while they are reading the Megillah, Lo Yomar, he shouldn't say, Ekra es kula, I'm going to read the entire Megillah, V'acher kach ekra oso pasuk, and then I'll go back and I will read that pasuk. Elakare me oso pasuk. Rather, they have to go back and reread, starting from the pasuk that they skipped.
אחר הדברים האלה כשאו חמס המלך אחשוורוש זכר את ושתי ויעש אשר עשה סביס אשר נגזר עליה ויפקד המלך פקידים בכל מידות מלכותו.
You skipped the pasuk.
ויאמרו נערי המלך בשעריו יבקשו המלך נרוס פסולות טובות מראה ויפקד המלך פקידים בכל מידות.
So based on this, the Gemara says that if a person comes in late to synagogue, in other synagogues, of course, and they find that the people are halfway through the Megillah, they shouldn't say, okay, you know what, I will listen to the second half, and then I'll go back and I'll read the first half. Rather, a person has to hear the entire Megillah in order from beginning to end, every single pasuk.
So where have we traveled on our Purim journey? We have discussed which Adar to celebrate Purim in, Adar Rishon or Adar Sheni in a leap year. We have discussed how to fulfill the mitzvahs of B'shloach Manos, Matanos Le'Avyonim, and Mishnah, and the Seudah. We have seen what not to do to your guest at the Purim Seudah. Let the Bible stay alive, please. And finally, the how and why of the correct order of reading the Megillah. All of these principles are derived from the words of the Megillah itself, which we are so excited to hear in just a short while.
Thank you for helping us
Bring Gemara to life.